What's up, guys? I'm here tonight with Kenny Atiken, the creator, writer, Kickstarter manager of for Apex, and this is a story I heard about. I believe it was Two Brothers did an interview with you like way back when, and then I saw you on there a second time, and I was like, "This is a really cool project. I really want to check this out." So, Mr. Kenny Atiken, why don't you go ahead and explain who you are and what you do, and then we can talk about Apex a little more.
Cool. Yeah, my name's Kenny Atiken. I'm the writer, creator, and colorist for a comic book called Apex Cybernetic Samurai Owl. It's about a cybernetic samurai owl who escapes from his creators. He's created in a lab. He escapes his creators, crash lands in the mountains, meets up with this old samurai master dude, and learns to become samurai. And then it's pretty straightforward story. It's a lot of action. He fights robots and other monsters and giant dinosaurs and all kinds of crazy stuff in the future of Japan. And it's just a lot of fun. I just have a lot of fun making it and just, being wild and crazy and just letting loose and doing that kind of thing. So
what what kind of influences go into this kind of thing? Because the way that you talk about it, it just, all the imagery I see and stuff, it reminds me of something that would have fit in very well in the 90s with like all of the anthropomorphic characters we had on TV and the kind of like bombastic, fast-paced action and lots of like different factions and like secret spies and bases and all that kind of stuff that you got out of like G.I. Joe and all that. So I guess like what inspired Apex and where did you kind of come up with all of this?
Pretty much said right there, like generally just like 80s and 90s comic and cartoon media, mostly cartoons. Comic books are expensive now. I can't believe anybody buys them. Buy my stuff. But cartoons mostly, because cartoons were free on TV. So we had like G.I. Joe, like you said. Ninja Turtles was a huge influence for me. Oddly enough, I just found out about Yojimbo not too long ago. Actually, I didn't know about that character at all. Somebody was like, "Was Yojimbo influence?" I'm like, "Actually, no, I didn't know about him until just last year," which is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
which is really strange because he's really popular. Let's see here.
Yeah, and been around forever.
Yeah, really. So X-Men is one of my biggest influences. I'm a huge X-Men fan. I'm also a huge samurai movie fan, so old school samurai movies, Akira Kurosawa, that kind of thing. What else goes into this? Everything. Mega Man. I'm a huge fan of video games. Mega Man is my favorite video game franchise. So Mega Man and X-Men's kind of like my main influence for this one. And just ridiculous, like over the top anime style like fight scenes, like Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball comes to mind. One Punch Man is a more recent one that has kind of ridiculous, super fun like fight scenes and things like that. So
yes, I love that one.
It's so good. Yeah. I always have those kind of in my mind when I'm putting together stuff for Apex. I'm like, is this over the top enough? And then Brian, the line artist, Brian Belando, he does the line art and he just totally like on board with it. He's just like, yeah, we're just gonna do this ridiculous fight scene. It's gonna look cool, and we just do it. It's kind of it's so fluid. It's such a strange thing to me because there's no. It just happens, So
yeah. There's a lot in there to touch on. Mega Man. I never really played too much of the original games, but I loved the Mega Man X series. I had all of those. And Mega Man Legends, I don't even know how much time I put into that game. So
Legends was so hard, but it was so cool when it came out because it was like one of the first 3D games where you could like kind of move around your character in like different directions. Going back to it now, it's a little awkward because you have to use the shoulder buttons to move to turn.
Yeah.
Because have the I don't even know if they had analog sticks back when that game came out. I think it was still the D-pad. So
yeah, they had analog on the 64 and the PlayStation, but they hadn't figured out how to control the cameras with it very well. It was still like you were running around and then you would have to use the shoulder buttons to turn the camera and stuff.
Yeah, that was so strange. I think they used the lock-on system from that game too. Was a big development. Like when they finally figured out how to get like a shooting element into a 3D space, which was kind of I think a big challenge back then. So that was kind of
Oh
cool.
yeah. Yeah, it was a really cool game, and it had like all the action and like some RPG elements, and then all of that within like a Mega Man kind of game, where you're upgrading and all of that. So it was a really unique game at the time. I was always blown away by that one. Did they ever make a sequel to it though? It seems like it should have done well enough.
There was Mega Man Legends 2, I believe. I've never played it because I think it's kind of a rare. It's kind of a rare game. I think. I don't think. I think it's kind of got a cult following. It's not really like a huge thing, but I mean, Mega Man Legends is kind of one of the smaller games in the franchise. I think. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, now they do all the other ones. They're kind of weird now. All the like BattleNet or whatever.
Oh yeah, they haven't made a game. Actually, they haven't made a Mega Man game in a while. 11 came out not too long ago, and that was really good. Hopefully, they come out with another one soon. But they did like late 2009, 2010. I think they had 11. Wait, was it 9 and 10? And those were like back to the 8-bit era kind of games.
Oh yeah,
they're super difficult. Those ones were really hard.
Man, that old stuff always is like going back now.
Yeah.
So that's really cool though, because like Apex, he's this digital owl or whatever. He's got like all these extra parts, right? He's kind of like modified. So like, is there like a love of sci-fi for you there too?
Yeah, I mean, basically just video game culture, kind of like mostly, and just kind of inspired by Mega Man, and mostly Mega Man and Weapon X are kind of the main inspirations for Apex. I was trying to keep the story simple. My original concept was to have a weekly webcomic where it was just this overpowered ass owl. I didn't have any real direction for what he did or where he came from or anything like that. It was just kind of like he was made in the lab and now he just slays things. And that was like the whole concept. And my good friend Garrett Gunn, he's like, hey man, just make a full book. This would be cool. And I'm like, okay. And then 3 years later, here I am releasing my third book, and it's been a blast. So it's just I just kind of try to keep the concept super simple and not go too crazy with it. I don't want to think too much,
Yeah.
I'm an artist and I'm a writer, and I don't want to, I don't want to overthink it. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah. So Garrett Gunn from Franklin and Ghost?
Yeah, a good friend of mine. He actually lives in the Yeah, so we've been good friends for a long time. He we actually, I haven't seen him in a while. We were taking ceramics class together before the pandemic hit. So we were making all kinds of crazy stuff in art class out at the local college here, and it's I miss him. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, I love his work. That's that's incredible advice to get from somebody, from somebody that I love the Warcorn stuff he's doing right now. Like that stuff's really cool too. Like that first book blew me away. I was like, okay, we're about to get like the Expendables, but they're like unicorns, and then like the whole mission goes completely sideways, and it's just like the most subversive comedy. I've never read anything quite like it.
It's really good. I can't even keep up with him. He's making so much stuff. I'm just like, he shows me an idea, and I'm like, wow, like where do you find the time? Because I mean, I've been working on Apex in my free time for the last 3 years, and it's pretty much a full-time gig for me just to work on this, and well, I guess I do other painting stuff and I go to school, but I feel like it's all I ever work on is Apex. So just to have the bandwidth to create so much and put so much out there. I mean, he's got so many different series in the work. It's insane. So really, he's doing a really good job.
Yeah, he's I mean, his stuff is really cool, and I know they got the animated series going for Franklin and Ghost, so I'm interested to see all that stuff and see how it translates, because like I said, his comedy's not just in like the dialogue or the character interaction. Like the entire concept of the story will be hilarious alone,
Right.
He does a really good job. So that's awesome to have somebody that influential around you to be able to kind of seek some advice from, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. Every time we get together, I get my batteries all charged up and I'm like ready to go. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Last time, actually the last con we went to was last January, right before all this pandemic stuff hit. So we had a lot of fun over there, and then that was it. That was the last time I went to a con. So it was we went to Portland. So
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Where are you located at now?
I'm in Northern California, so far Northern California.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So
yeah.
about 3.5 hours north of San Francisco.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's not Portland's not like way out there for you, but that's still probably a nice little run.
It's about 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours, I think. It's a pretty long drive. We're pretty, the closest thing we have here is San Francisco, Sacramento, San Francisco, 2.5 to 3.5 hours, depending on how far you go out. And then we're about 10.5 hours, about 12 hours in a car from LA, and about 10 hours from Portland. So it's a pretty long drive in any direction, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in Houston, Texas, so everything here, like to run down the street, it's like a 30-minute drive because traffic's awful.
Yeah, it's
But
packed over there, right?
you what?
It's pretty packed over there, right? You got a lot of people live over in that area.
Like here in Houston, yeah, but Texas itself is so big that we tend to sprawl. I imagine California is kind of the same. Like everything's just really far away. Instead of building up, we build out. And so like Houston, I mean, it's like 6 times bigger than it was when I was a kid, you know, it just keeps moving farther and farther out.
Yeah, I do feel like it is kind of like that here. And there's like pockets, right? There's pockets of population, and then
Yeah, because like Austin is a major city. That's about 3 hours from me. San Antonio's like 3 hours in the other direction. Brownsville in the border, that's about 6 hours. Dallas is about 4 hours north of me. So like you have these pockets, like El Paso, that's like a 14 to 16 hour drive all the way west, you know. So you have like these pockets of population and stuff, but for the most part, it's all rural.
Right, right. Yeah, that's kind of how it is here. I mean, where we live, it's pretty small. It's only like 200,000, maybe. Probably the whole area is probably about 300,000, maybe pushing it. But between here, like between Portland and San Francisco, I mean, there's just little towns, like and just nothing but forest and mountains. So it's I always make the joke that I live on the edge of civilization. If I walked a quarter a mile that way, I would be in the woods, and there'd be nothing but woods for hundreds of miles. So
wow, that's crazy.
It's like that. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So whenever you set out to create Apex, is this something you were consciously doing? Were you just like doodling and came up with a character and kind of developed a story for it? Or were you actively thinking like, I need to create something, and so you were trying to build this character out of your influences?
So I always get this question from Two Brothers Comics, because they always ask it, and I always have a different answer because there's lots of answers to this question. And I think I actually just thought of yet another one that is kind of there. So I kind of elaborated on this last time I talked with Two Brothers about how, but prior to me making this comic book, I tried to do a YouTube channel reviewing comics with a friend of mine, and it didn't really work out. It really sucked, and we didn't really have that much fun doing it. It was a lot of work. And that's kind of what sprung me into the next thing, which was making comics. Prior to that, I had a really bad spinal injury, and so I'm retired from my job as a truck driver. I used to be a truck driver for Budweiser, and about 8 years later, I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do? So I was like, well, I'm going to make a YouTube channel. We'll see if that feel that out. It's something I can do from home. I can stay home with my kids and whatnot, and not have then my wife can continue to do what she's doing, and it won't really disrupt much. So that's kind of the direction I went with that. And I used to draw this. I started drawing this character called RoboHawk, and he smoked cigars, and he was just kind of like this mascot for my channel. And I didn't realize it then, but I was digging through my garage, about 5 or 6 months ago when I was selling my house, and I found these drawings of this stupid character named RoboHawk. He was orange, and he had like a robot eye, and he had like the same pointy hair thing like Apex does. I was like, this is like the beginning. Like this is where it all started. And there really wasn't any story behind it. It was just some stupid thing that I just made. It was called RoboHawk, and it was dumb. He just like smoked cigars and was weird. But eventually I was just trying to make a comic book, and I was trying to collaborate with a friend of mine, and it really didn't work out. So we went our own ways, and then I just made Apex one day, and I was just like, all right, this is what I'm going to make. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to make my own thing, and we're going to go for it. So that's the long answer.
That's awesome, though. Yeah, it sounds like kind of a marriage of the two concepts that I threw out there. You were looking to generate some kind of idea, but there was something already planted there from what you'd been working on before.
Yeah,
So
I always wanted to make comics. So I knew that when I was a kid. Like I always wanted to make comic books. I had a few comic books when I was a kid. Mostly watched cartoons like X-Men, like I said, G.I. Joe, and I always wanted to be an artist of some sort. So like I used to draw He-Man and stuff. I don't really even remember much about He-Man. It was kind of it was kind of when I was really little, as He-Man was the thing.
yeah,
But I always knew I wanted to be an artist, animator for Disney, maybe. Not so much now. I don't think I'd want to work for Disney now, but animator of some sort or comic book artist. And when I kind of re-examined what I was doing with my life, when I was like 20, 29 or 30, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm going to make comics. Well, I guess I would have been a little older than that. I've been like 35. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna do what I wanted to do when I was young, and make comics and see how it goes, And here I am making comics.
yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know, like growing up, if I always imagine if you were like going into the family business or something, it might be easier. But like for me, growing up, I was always like, well, I kind of know what I'm interested in, but like I don't really know how to get there, because my parents have a very different lifestyle from me. They like being out in the country, and my dad, he's a mechanic. My mom was always at home, a housewife, and occasionally she would have like part-time jobs or something, but I never really had the guidance because like my dad he never really taught me how to work on vehicles much, because he always said if you know how to work on them, they'll expect you to work on them. So
Right.
He always wanted better for us, and so for me, that was like one of the weirdest things about growing up is like, you're kind of like, okay, I know that people are getting paid to like draw pictures that go on TV to make these shows I enjoy, but like, how do I do that? And that's, I guess that's kind of like half of the adventure is figuring out how to get there and how to stumble into it,
That's I mean, that's really the trick. Like, I mean, I just went and met with a colleague of mine last week, and it's interesting because I've been going through and like kind of learning how to do this whole process on my own. And I've kind of found over this last couple of years that there is no one way to do this. Everybody finds their own way, and everybody finds a way to push forward and make things. And like, I'm learning from everybody. So, these guys, other guys that I know, like the person I was meeting with the other day, has been in the business for a very long time. And he's like, this is how we do things. This is how, and kind of taking me under his wing and teaching me certain things that, to make me better. Right. And super appreciate that, because it's really difficult to find people who want to help you succeed. You really have to be willing to do it on your own, so, and find the answers for yourself and do the things for yourself and make it happen for yourself. So it's a really tricky thing, because a lot of times I'm like, well, how do I do this? And, it could be anything, right? Like, how do I, format this file in a certain way so that somebody else can work on it or something, and it maybe sound like the simplest of things, right? But sometimes it's really hard because you don't know. And sometimes it's really hard to find the answer too. So it's a lot of trial and error, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's one thing I like about like comics and the industry and the community of it all, is comics are very down to earth. Like, yeah, there's like competition within it all, but it doesn't tend to attract the most competitive people. And so oftentimes you do meet others that are happy to like help out and try to, share some knowledge and some information, Whenever I was younger, I used to work in this warehouse, and the company was downsizing. And so they brought this manager down from Dallas to basically start condensing like this work they were doing all over the place. And he was the only person that knew how to run this one machine. And it was crazy because like he would get sick and like it would basically shut down a whole shop. But he refused to teach anybody else how to run this machine because he knew it would basically put him out of a job. Because as they were downsizing, they were getting rid of people that were getting like overpaid, and he knew he was at a management level, so he would be cut if somebody else could run the machine. And it just blew my mind, like somebody to be so competitive that that's where they're at, you know?
Yeah, I mean, in that case, it's keeping a roof over your head and food in your mouth, you know. So
yeah, a little more justified, but yeah, like you know, just the idea that like people are so competitive within their business that they would hold a secret back or something, you know. That comics are very like down to earth, and people in the community are like very helpful, and that's something that I think works to the strength of what comics are to us, you know.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a good topic there. I actually didn't really think about it that way. That I don't really see a lot of people competing. Maybe it's because we don't have the energy to do it. We're just so busy all the time, like making stuff, and it's a lot of, it takes a lot of energy. I've been working like pretty much nonstop on finishing up the book and running the Kickstarter. Running a Kickstarter is pretty exhausting. I never thought it would be such a job, like putting it together and then, you know, managing all the ins and outs of it every single day. I'm like, man, this is a lot of work. It's a lot. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that I never knew went on before I, you know, did it in the first place. And luckily for me this time, it's doing really well. Last time we ran right down to the line. It funded like the day before the end of it. And that was good, but it was pretty stressful, like getting to that end day and being like, man, we just barely made it, you know? But this time we're crushing it so hard. We are crushing it so hard this time.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I hear from a lot of Kickstarter creators, and Matt and Noah from Constructing Comics, they've run a couple of Kickstarters, and I've interviewed them and stuff, and that's what they talk about is like how stressful that 30 days is, you know, because you're moving good at the beginning, and then the middle you hit this lull, and then at the end you have all the like last minute people jumping on board, but they're not going to jump on at the end unless you are, you know, like pretty close to your goal. Like they feel like it's going to be successful. And so like everybody talks about how those 30 days are just like so stressful. They couldn't do it too many times, you know?
Yeah. I only do mine for 21. I cut a whole week off. So we pretty much have the first week. It's pretty strong. It's so far that's been the case. Second week's a little weaker. And then the third week is usually pretty good. So we're hitting into the middle of I guess the second week just started yesterday. So we're heading in the second week right now, and we're doing great. We're still getting pledges every day, and it's still doing really good. So hopefully we have a strong finish at the end, and we finish real big. I got some huge stretch goals planned for the bigger stuff. So we'll see what happens.
That's awesome. Are you using the new like the new add-on system they have and everything?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it too. It's been working out really good. We have this time I have unpainted action figures made by my friend Damien, who runs is starting a company called O Toys, and we are those are on the add-on system only. I don't have a tier for those, so and it's been working out really good for those. We've moved quite a bit of action figures, and I put pretty much everything I have on there, and I've been moving some product on there, and I've heard a lot of people saying that it wasn't working out for them. It seems to be working good for me so far. So I think that's good. I'm glad it's available this time. Last campaign, it was just coming out in the beta version, and they were only selecting certain people to use it. So I didn't get picked for that last time. So this time I got it, and it's great. I love it. I spent a lot of time setting it up, so I'm glad it is.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I've been hearing mostly positive things, and my thoughts on it is just that like sometimes there's like not stretch goals, but like different tiers, you know, and it's like, well, I want the book and like this one item, but like the only way to get that item is in the book is like to go all the way up, you know, and you end up with a bunch of stuff that, you know, it's not the worst to have, but now you've spent a bunch of money on stuff that didn't really interest you.
Yeah.
And so I really like the add-on system, giving you the ability to kind of a la carte your own reward system, you know, your own reward tier, I guess.
I think my biggest issue with the previous method too is that this way it's contained within the system, right? So Kickstarter it has its own system for this now, and it's managed within the system. Whereas before, somebody would have to add money to their pledge, and then DM the creator and say, this is what I want added on, and then you have to trust that they're going to remember that that's what that's for. And so there's really no record of that, and it's kind of a muddy system.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like a pain in the ass. If you have anytime you can simplify something for your customer, your fans, your supporters, always the best way to go. Like I always use this example, and it drives some people crazy, but people used to steal Game of Thrones every week after it came out on TV. And the reason why is because it wasn't available to watch. The second they started streaming it, immediately during and after the show, people stopped stealing it because it was available. People paid money to watch it, because it was available, and people will pay for things if it's worth it, right? So if you make something convenient and easy for your customer to buy, it's not a pain in the ass, they will buy it.
Yeah. I had one instance where like I had missed, like Kickstarter for issue number 3 or something, and so along comes number 4, the campaign for number 4, and I had to go through that. I had to message the creator and be like, hey, I put an extra $5 for this item or whatever, and it worked out. But like, it's just like you said, it's kind of like frustrating and nerve-wracking. Most of the other time, people were using BackerKit, and you could kind of work that in to generate kind of a similar system to what they're using now, I think but even that was a little more convoluted,
Yeah, I think Kickstarter realized that they're losing out on a little something there, because with BackerKit, that's kind of taking sales out of the Kickstarter ecosystem and putting it into another one, right? So I think they kind of realized, hey, like we're losing out on some potential money here. So this keeps a lot more of that money in the Kickstarter ecosystem. So smart move on them. I think it's good overall. I haven't seen any negatives with it. Hopefully there isn't any when after this whole situation's all said and done. It's the jury's still out on it though, because I haven't finished the campaign yet. So we'll see how it works.
Yeah. And so who's the creative team on Apex? Is it just you, or do you have colors, letters, artists?
So I'm the creator, writer, and colorist. Brian Belando is the penciler and inker, so he does everything digitally. And then I have Justin Birch is the letterer. So Justin Birch from Two Brothers Comics is letters on the book.
The third brother and two brothers.
the third brother. I think it's kind of funny because the first time I seen Two Brothers was because Justin shared it on Facebook, and me and Justin are obviously friends on Facebook because we work together. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, he's on this thing. I'm going to go say hi. And then I look, I'm like, well, this is Two Brothers Comics, but there's 3 people. It's kind of weird. So it's kind of silly, right? But yeah, totally cool, dude. All those guys, man. I hear all these horror stories. I'm in like every comic book group on Facebook, and I always hear horror stories about people, not working well together, people ripping each other off, all this like crazy stuff. And like, I've just been so lucky to just have like the best artist to work with, Brian Belando. I give him a script, he gives me a page, and it's exactly the way I want it. I almost never have to ask him for changes. So it's just such a smooth process. He just sees what I'm putting down, which is great, because I'll admit I'm not the greatest writer. I'm writing with purpose, and I'm not writing, I'm an artist first. So I just see things cinematically, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not always looking at like, my writing's not always the best and the cleanest. So yeah, he does such a great job with it. And same thing with Justin. He takes my letters, he takes my dialogue and makes it look good. I'm like, hey man, sound effects. I just like put, I don't know what sound effect do we put here. And he's like, he just hands me something back. He's like, here, this is the sound, Yeah. It's like wizardry really, because I don't know, like, that spaloosh, like kind of like sound that you sometimes get in the comic book, right? That's a whole vocabulary on its own. And Justin puts that together so well, and just, his lettering's clean, it looks good. And it's when his touch gets on the book, that's when it's done, So it's super cool.
Yeah, lettering is one of those things, like, and sound effects and stuff, like all of that aspect of it, it's like something I completely don't understand. Like I don't even have the most basic understanding of how to do all of that and think about it, but it's one of those things, like, whenever, even if it's not quite perfect, like, it usually doesn't bother you. But you ever notice, like, sometimes like lettering, it's just like so perfect, you can tell, like, this works, you know, like they did something here. There's work and genius in this, you know. And likewise, you really notice when it stands out whenever it's really bad, you know.
Yep.
So
I mean,
that's always
bad
good to have a
letter
creator
art,
that can help you with that.
you could bad art. You can carry a book with bad art, bad writing. You cannot carry a book with bad lettering. I'll say that every time. If the lettering's bad, the book is no good. I don't care how good your writing is, how good your art is, how good your coloring is. All that stuff doesn't matter. If the lettering's bad, it's no good. So
Yeah.
pay your letterers, guys. They're
Yeah.
a book. Like seriously, I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that dialogue and narration and everything's important to even tell the story. So if you can't read that, then there's no way you can move forward, you know.
Well, I don't know what it is because I don't know. The reason why I pay a letterer is because I don't know, right? Because I don't know the ins and outs of lettering. I just know when lettering looks bad. I don't know why it looks bad. It's the spacing in the bubble position, whatever it is. I mean, it could be a combination of all those things, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to describe what's bad about it, but I can tell you it's bad, and I know that Justin's good, and that's all that matters. So, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
Pay your letterers. This is not a threat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know you mentioned drawing earlier, and I think I've heard you talk about this on Two Brothers before, but what about the artwork? Because you draw the character and stuff, right? So you are an artist of sorts. So why don't you do the book? Why do you have a letter or a pencil and inks?
Oh man, that's a good question. So the reason why I don't draw it, first of all, I don't like the way I draw. It's kind of become like my most neglected skill in my toolbox. I'm not terribly good at drawing sequential art, and I'm not terribly. I mean, I draw okay. I mean, let me see. Let me find something. Let me find something here that I have that I just drew recently. Where I just had it. Like, is it over here? Where did I put it? I've been drawing this really cool frog guy. Did I put it in this book? Here it is. Right. So I've been drawing this new character that I'm working on for another series I'm going to be putting together here within the next year, and it's this right here. So it's kind of cool, right? It's this frog guy.
Oh yeah.
He's Scottish. He's from Scotland. He's got this little panda bear friend here. Wherever I can't point to it because it's backwards, but he's got this little panda bear buddy here. So I don't know. I just don't feel confident with it, and it just takes so much time. So with the amount of time I have right now, I had to pick something to let go of. So I'm like, okay, what do I do good? I can color good. I think I'm pretty good at coloring. And I'm definitely not lettering. I'm not going to do that. I'm definitely not inking. I'm definitely not going to be doing the sequentials. I'll do a cover every once in a while. I have a couple covers that I've done. So I was like, I'll color. I'll hire somebody to do line art, and we'll stick with, we'll get a letterer and stuff like that. And sure, it costs a lot more money to do it this way, but I think I have a way more quality book, and I have a work-life balance, right? Because I can't spend 12 hours a day working on this. I have to do other work too to make money and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's pretty much why.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not even gonna lie to you, man. When you said that you didn't think your artwork was good enough, I was like, okay, so maybe he's just an amateur artist. But dude, that was really good stuff, man. Like you are a quality artist in your own right, so that's really cool. But I totally do what?
I said, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh yeah. I totally understand what you mean though, because I've talked to like enough artists and creators and listened to enough interviews, and they talk about having to balance like your ability to get the work done in a timely manner. Like right. You have to be good enough to create something that people can read and is quality enough, but you also can't spend an infinite amount of time on it, or else you're never gonna be able to hit deadlines and make page rates. And
yep.
I think even Daniel Warren Johnson, I think he had mentioned like very early on he had submitted some stuff, and they were like, yeah, like this is incredible, but you're going to have to figure out how to like take some of that detail out so that you can get done in time, because you can't put this much detail into every page or else you'll never make it. So I think
That's really the
it's
trick too. I think with the sequentials is like you have to be able to simplify, and you have to be able to let some things go. I think, and I'm not good at that. I want to detail everything. You
yeah,
know?
yeah. I mean, that's credit to you to understand your strengths and weaknesses and still be able to do your thing and be happy with that and bring somebody else in on the team because that gives them an opportunity to sharpen their skills and work on a project and it also takes a little bit out of your hands so that you can focus and I guess like being a creative artist like that and stuff that probably goes into your scripting very well because now you know how to describe things. I imagine you could describe things very well in a script for your artist to kind of put it all together and make it flow. So I guess like what is your scripting process? What are you doing there?
So I kind of, it took me a long time to actually come up with this, and I don't know how other writers do it. So I'm probably doing it wrong. Maybe not. I have no idea. I haven't really talked to a lot of other writers about their stuff. What I started doing was I started looking up screenplays and started looking up how movie scripts are put together. Because I was like, well, if a comic book, if you storyboard, because I mean, at the base of every animation, movie, and comic book is like storyboarding, right? I feel like. So what do you do before that? You have a screenplay or a script that you work off of. So you have you're basically the director, right? When you're the writer, and you're saying like, this is the camera angle, this is the scene, this is the shot, this is where we're going, this is how the mood is, this is the kind of thing, the scene we're setting, right? And these are the things happening within that scene. So that's kind of how I write. Prior to that, I usually just kind of jot down a rough outline. I'm like, okay, well, this is what happens. This is why it happens. This is what's going to happen because of that. And then this is where we're going to leave off to move into the next thing. If we're moving into another thing, if it's ending there, it ends there. And then I just fill in the blanks as I go. And then I just rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it until I get it to condense it down to a spot where I feel good about it. So like currently right now, the fourth book that we're working on is 40 pages. I think I started with like 60 and I like cut it down because I'm like, okay, I got to move some of this to the next one because it's too big. So it's a process, but it's the writing part's probably the most, it's almost like a puzzle to me because it's kind of like I have to build the continuity, right? But that makes sense. I can't just, go, well, Apex is going to go kill all these characters. And then, 20 minutes later, all those characters are back and like, he's fighting them again or, some random shit like that. I mean, nothing that silly, but it's probably the biggest challenge for me when I start getting into the parts where I'm breaking things down and I'm like, okay, there's this giant dinosaur and he's attacking Tokyo and the camera angle is coming from way outside of Tokyo and you can like see Apex coming like through the mountains and the moon's up here and and then when the next panel he's like he pulls out his swords and lands on the building and then the dinosaur charges the building, figuring out all those different things and how all those things are going to look as far as camera angles and things like that and how we're going to draw them in the perspective is kind of tough. Do we want things bleeding out of panels? So we got to figure out like, would this look cool if this dinosaur was coming out of the panel here, or Apex was coming out of the panel here, or flying towards the reader? Those kinds of things. Trying to find places for interesting things to happen that excite the reader and make it still readable.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned you started at 60 pages, you cut it down to 40. Do you have like a standardized format as far as like page count that you're following, or have you just let the story that you want to tell kind of dictate how many pages you use?
I just kind of go for it and then just kind of see where it's at. For the first 3 books, originally it was going to be one comic, and it was, I think it's sitting in about total, when I put it back together for the trade paperback, it's going to be like 88 pages, I think. And it was one whole story all in one. I decided to split it into 3 and release it incrementally on Kickstarter because I wanted to get it out there. I knew that selling an 88-page trade paperback as my first creative project was going to be a tough sell, and I think it paid off because I've slowly been starting to build a fan base over the last over the last year. Last year in April, I actually released the first book. The second one I released in August, I believe, and then I think I had it out by November. I think I ran the Kickstarter in August, and we had the book out by November into everybody's mailbox. And then this one took a little longer because I was moving and doing some other school stuff and things like that, and then pandemic things and stuff like that. So back, let's see, what was I saying? So yeah, that one's supposed to be 88 pages. I cut it down to 3 books. I found that 25 pages doesn't really work very well because the printing goes in sections of 4, blocks of 4. So you got 2 pages front and back, and they fold it so it's 4 pages for 2 sheets, I guess. So I had to add a bunch of filler pages to the first book. So it was kind of weird. I didn't really like doing that. So the second book I filled out. I made sure that time I added a bunch of extra pages to make that book more thick and chunkier. And then this one also, this next book that we're working, number 3, is 38 pages. So I like 38 pages. I think it feels good. I think it feels like a good, solid book. Most comic books you get are like 22, I think, these days, somewhere around there. I think that feels a little short. And especially since I don't write a lot of dialogue. Apex is a silent character, so I feel like with less reading, you're going to be flipping through the pages faster. 38 pages feels like a good spot for that type of book.
Yeah, this is this is something that comes up on here quite a bit because it's a topic that fascinates me, because you think about like novels, right? You have something like Harry Potter, for instance. Every one of those books gets bigger, not because like she had to make the books bigger. It's because she was building a world and a story, and the story was dictating how many words it was going to take to tell this story, and that in turn shows you how many pages. But then you look at comic books, and because we've like kind of artificially placed this like 22-page number on everything, especially through superhero stuff, that's kind of become like this weird standard. And for me, I have found that if a book is 22 pages, it has to be like incredibly well written for me to feel like I actually got a good value of story out of 22 pages. And I found that like the more they call it prestige format. I wish they would just call it standard, because like 32 pages and up is where I see like a good story being told.
Do you really have a name for that? I didn't even know that. Prestige format.
I feel like every time somebody says prestige format, I end up picking up like a 32 or 34 page book or something like that. So that's kind of what I think they're meaning by that now.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard that. Yeah, I think that bigger isn't always better as far as anything goes, but I think that a couple of reasons. One, when you come to Kickstarter and you buy a comic book from me, you're buying it at a premium price, and that's just the nature of Kickstarter. Being a small independent creator, there's a lot of extra costs that I just can't get out of. Like packing materials, things like that that cost a lot of money. So I want to make sure that people are getting their money's worth too. Because I know, you could pay $10 a month for Netflix and get an infinite amount of content. And I'm fighting for that dollar, right? So
yeah,
if I'm gonna take that money from you, I'm gonna make sure that you're getting something good, because something that I believe in and something that I think is good. I'm not cutting any corners on that. So sometimes it's gonna be 40, and sometimes it might be longer than that. I don't really know. I really set a page limit in mind. I maybe I should, because it would cost less. I don't know. Monetary. It'd probably be smart to have some kind of plan going into it, but I'm not really into sacrificing quality of the story or quality of the book just to save $80 on a page or $160 on a couple of pages or whatever. It's a small amount of price to pay for quality.
Yeah, and I think it benefits you as an independent creator, because the other side of that coin is like these companies are kind of stuck at these price points. They're at $3.99 or whatever, and so they have to make sure that they can make cost and profit off of whatever price point they have already set for these books. So they're kind of locked into how many pages. Whereas you, as an independent creator, when you come to Kickstarter, you can say, well, it's going to cost this much because it's this many pages. So as long as you're within a reasonable amount, you know, you can kind of dictate the cost of each book based on, you know, how much content is there, you know, so that changes the game for you too, you know.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure. I think I definitely think that there's a huge advantage to being an indie creator in that sense. I was also thinking too, you know, a lot of people were saying, you know, well, the comic book industry is, you know, dying. I think it's just changing. I think, you know, when you have things like Netflix, where, like I said before, like it's $10, you can get an infinite amount of content. I'm selling a comic book for $10. You know what I mean? DC selling their comic book for $4. They're having a hard time selling there sometimes. I mean, not to say that I'm, you know, beating DC or anything like that, but I do see that people are willing to go out there and pay $10 for a comic book if it's something that they really want. So I think that's a good thing for comic books, indie creators, and the industry as a whole. That, you know, there's people out there that are willing to buy something that they believe is good. You know, they'll pay the money for it.
Yeah.
And that's good. You know, so that'll keep us independent creators going for a while, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think, you know, it's going through an evolutionary period because we're having to compete with everything. You know, it's not just the comic books themselves or the comic book industry, but you're competing for attention. I mean, that's what they've kind of started referring to this as, is the attention age. You know, there's plenty of content. You can, you know, look anywhere and find content. You're competing for attention, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, you're right. It's absolutely impressive that people can put out these books on Kickstarter that, you know, it's costing you $10, $15 sometimes with shipping and everything to get them to your door. But people are still going out there and buying this stuff because they're passionate about comic books and the things that are in those pages, you know, and they want it. So it's an awesome industry.
I feel like the opposite thing's happening with video games right now, like where people are like, I'm not paying full price for that. And, you know, and then the game companies got the next week, you know, they're selling the game on sale for $15 off because they couldn't move enough copies, you know, in the first 2 weeks. It's kind of weird, you know, and like you said, there's so much content out there, so much. And you're fighting, you know, as an independent creator, you're not only trying to rise above the sea of other creators and, you know, get noticed and seen there, but you're also fighting against Netflix, you're fighting against Marvel, DC, you're against the video game companies, you know, all of these things. And all of these things kind of flow together in tandem, right? Like they're all kind of the same, in the same thing, but you're also competing against them at the same time. It's a really interesting thing. These medias are kind of tangible, but kind of intangible at the same time. It's kind of a funky, dynamic, really, with all of it and how it all works together.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. You know, I mean, over the last 10 or so years, we've seen like the rise of Twitter. You know, it's always incredible to me whenever like Twitter is kind of referred to as an entity that can like kind of control public perception and persuasion. You know, if a movie comes out, like if some piece of media drops, the way Twitter reacts to it is going to dictate the life of that product, you know, and that's just crazy. Like to believe that we're at this point where, you know, something like that can happen.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. I actually just got active on Twitter like in the last couple of weeks, so it's been kind of a learning process for me. I've tried to stay away from it. It's still really not my cup of tea. I don't really care much for it, but I mean, it's kind of social media is kind of a necessary evil to you know, to live in this space. So you kind of have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, Twitter is. I find Twitter not as bad as people talk about it, you know. But it does take time. I mean, I've been there passively for, I don't know, probably like 6 years, and really the last year or two is where I've been most active as far as like Twitter, you know. And I found that once I like kind of like built a community around me, I didn't get all the bad people and all the negative stuff that you hear about Twitter. But it takes some time to kind of like generate your presence and find your group so that you don't have to get involved with all the craziness.
I think that's kind of where I'm getting in that direction right now, just because it's kind of, like when you first get on there and you're not really following anybody, it's like you get a lot of suggested tweets, and the most controversial things always rise to the top, right? When it's suggested things. So it's just kind of like I open it up, I'm like, okay, I don't like this. See you later, and I don't deal with the controversy on there. I don't do any of that. It's not worth my time to engage in. I'm there to talk about what I'm doing, and that's it. And to support my people who are doing what they're doing. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, and it is a great place for that, connecting with people and supporting each other. It is a great platform for that. You just got to train that algorithm to know what to keep out and what to show you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're coming up on an hour. I guess, why don't you go ahead and, I guess, like give your pitch, because I feel like we haven't truly really defined Apex up until this point really well. So why don't you go ahead and let everybody know exactly what Apex is and about the Kickstarter, all the dates they need to know, where they can find it, where they can find you, and anything else you want to talk about.
Okay. So Apex Cybernetic Samurai. Let me figure out what the end date is here. It ends in 12 days. So that is on the 18th, 19th, I think. Let's see here. It doesn't give you a date, does it? It doesn't look like it does. It ends in 12 days. So we'll just say 12 days. So Apex Cybernetic Samurai Owl is a comic book series created by me, drawn by Brian Belando, lettered by Justin Birch. I color the book. It is about a cybernetic samurai owl who escapes his creators. He's created in a lab, and he pretty much destroys the whole thing, escapes, meets up with an old samurai master, and learns the ways of samurai. And then he's basically on the run from his creators. They want him back because he is a weapon, and he is designed to be a weapon. And my pitch is so bad. He's designed to be a weapon, and they want him back so that they can take over the world. So basically, he's on the run. He's learning the ways of samurai, and he's just awesome. His special power is that he can absorb the I guess I'm going to say the essence of creatures that he defeats. So it's very similar to Mega Man in that vein. It's kind of a nod to Mega Man more than a copy of him, but so kind of a neat little twist in there. And then we're on the third book right now. It's a lot of fun, a lot of action, a lot of throwbacks to old samurai style movies and anime films that I grew up watching. Akira, Dragon Ball, just ridiculous things like that. Things that have ridiculous fight scenes in them and stuff like that. Very cinematic and a lot of fun.
Awesome. And you said you're on Twitter. What's your handle on Twitter?
I am Kenny Atiken on Twitter. I'm Kenny Atiken everywhere. So Kenny Atiken Art or Kenny Atiken on all platforms. I'm on everything you can possibly think of. I can't think of anything I'm not on. I'm not active on everything, but I am there. So if you find me on, I don't know, MySpace, I'm there. I might not talk to you, but I'm still there, I think. So yeah. I think Justin Timberlake owns MySpace now.
Yeah, he bought it maybe like 8 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
I want to say like 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. He bought it, and his company was supposed to like build it, rebuild it or whatever, turn it into another platform. But I don't think it really took off well for him. I'm assuming it's still there though.
I think I logged in there like 5 or 6 years ago and just like deleted everything off my profile. I can see like music and stuff on there and like pictures, and I'm like, yeah, these are just old pictures of me. I don't need anybody seeing weird pictures of me, drinking at the bar or whatever, just being, young and stupid. So
yeah. I mean, it was an early time, for social media.
Nothing bad, but I mean, just fun stuff, Yeah, it's weird. I kind of miss MySpace a little bit. It was kind of cool, like you get a little profile song, and everybody like thinks it's cool. I don't know. It's kind of
you could change all the backgrounds and stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot. I remember there being a lot of hate for Facebook when it first came out. People were like, I'm not getting on Facebook. I'm on MySpace. MySpace is like cool, right? And apparently Facebook is for like old people now, though. That's That's
I
what
feel
I.
like Facebook is like constantly the underdog for whatever reason, you know. They were new whenever MySpace was the biggest thing in the world, so everybody hated it, you know, and then they got their foothold and then people hated it because it was no longer just for college students and then it kind of took over and people started to hate it because old people were on there, you know. So like they're always kind of this weird underdog, but they shouldn't be. They're they're one of the biggest social media networks in the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the whole thing's kind of interesting. So yeah, I'm on every platform. I have accounts on like Tumblr, and like I always say that because it's funny. I think because I get on there and I open it up and I'm like, what is this even? So I started a TikTok recently, made a couple posts on there. Not really for me, but hey, follow me on TikTok. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Awesome.
cool.
Awesome. Well, I don't know. I counted 12 days and I feel like if I'm counting right, I ended up at the 17th. So somewhere in there, make sure you make sure you back Apex by the 17th so that you'll be good to go.
Yeah, yeah, because we started on the 27th, I think. So I started
Oh,
before
okay.
the first of the month. So I run for 21 days. Um, yeah, it's weird. It doesn't give you an end date on here, I don't think. Let me see.
Yeah. It
There's
probably
not.
tells you like whenever you back it, but not if you don't back it so that you never really know.
Yeah, I think there's like one page here that says like where. Let's see here. It'll tell me somewhere, I think. Let's see here.
I hate how different their the Kickstarter website versus app experience is.
Yeah, it is really weird. Well, because like sometimes I'll try to back things with my phone and I'm like, it's not working.
Yeah, like there's a lot of companies that have gotten this really seamless experience across the web and mobile and all that. But for some reason, Kickstarter, their app is just a little bit different about all these different things than the website is, you know?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's got to be a little bit right. Yeah, it's not letting me look at it. I think it
Yeah.
ends 17th. It's 12 days from today, and today's the 5th. So, like you said, basic math, 17th. Back it by then, you should be good. Back it sooner if you want. I
Yeah.
mean,
Go back it now so you don't forget.
yeah. As soon as you see this, just go back it. It's good. I promise you won't be sad. And you can get the whole series on this Kickstarter campaign too. That's one of the most important things I think about this number 3 campaign is that you can get everything other than prior campaign Kickstarter exclusives and prior campaign exclusive coins, which I have right here. So I didn't tell you about these. I do these coins. This is the one from issue 2. And this is Unit 11. These are Kickstarter exclusive coins. I do these for the first 75 backers on every campaign that I've run so far. Let's go slide off the table. Here's the other one here. This is Apex. This is from the first campaign. You can't get these anymore, but I'm doing another one for this one. And there's like 4 coins left. So people who back at a physical tier get a coin for free for the first 75 backers. So it's a little thing I do for my early backers to take care of them and let them know, hey, I appreciate you guys. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, those look really cool. All right, man. Well, I had a blast talking with you, and I feel like you had a lot of great insight. So you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
You